Okay, yeah, more religion stuff for Attack on Titan, or in this case, one of the extremist groups that we deal with in the series. This video is about the Jaegerists, who are of course the the followers of Eren, slash also kind of the people that think that Eldia or Paradis is on the verge of destruction, and they believe that only they can save the island by dedicating themselves to, of course, Eren Yeager. It's a very rebellious faction. The kind of de facto leader is actually Flock uh, Forster, who we see him kind of throughout the series. I think he's a little bit at the beginning. I don't remember specifically if he's part of the same training corps as Eren and his friends, but he is one of the ones that I think goes off to become an MP in the in the capital, a little bit more of a lap of luxury type of thing. He is friends with Marlowe and Hitch. He's friends with them for a little while. And he's actually at the Battle of, it's not Trosk, but he's at one of the other, well, he's part of the Battle of Trosk, I think. And then he decides to not want to go be a scout. And to a degree, after what they see happen at Trosk, I kind of don't blame people for that. I don't blame people in the slightest in Attack on Titan when they're like, I don't want to be a scout. I would like the higher likelihood of surviving. So yeah, I don't blame people in that case after they see like what happens at Trosk, or if they were witnesses to what happened in Shiganshina or other places as the Titans started to appear. When they made their way inside the walls. I don't blame them for being scared in those cases. Or like to going, no, I would like to go to the place furthest away from the Titans. Thank you very much. Yeah, I don't blame them for that. But what ends up happening is, of course, they kind of develop during the 4-year time jump, the time skip. Flock is basically, as I said, he's kind of the de facto leader. The other members that they interact with throughout the course of the throughout the course of the series, we of course have Eren Yeager, who's kind of their spiritual leader, but is their kind of official leader. He keeps giving them information, and the Jaegerists end up working with Yelena, or Elena, depending on which way you want to pronounce her name, in order to help plan for Eren and Zeke to be able to meet, because their plan is, of course, to have Eren activate the rumbling, not just a little temporary rumbling to show what he can do, but a full-scale rumbling, and then just send all of the colossal titans that are in the wall, just send them out to start destroying everything outside of Paradis, regardless of whether or not it was an enemy or an ally. But as they, one of the other members that they interact with is Louise, who is actually the girl that Mikasa saves in Trosk. Her mom and her are two of the people that are waiting by the gate trying to get out, whereas the merchant is trying to get all of his wares through the gate. And there's the little girl that's there, and there's her mother, and Mikasa saves them from a Titan. And then threatens, of course, the guy to get moving so everybody else can get through. Because like the Titans aren't going to care about your wares, dude. They're more interested in the bunch of humans that are standing around there and kind of quartered like cattle. Louise grows up and she is a Jaegerist. She is not fully committed to Eren against everything. She is part of the group that goes, she's part of the, she ends up becoming one of the scouts, or one of the other, well, I guess scouts is the best way to put it, is one of the ones that does end up going to Liberio, and as part of that attack. Flock is also there along with several other members of the Jaegerists, and they make their way back to Paradis. She tries to save Sasha on the ship back. She tries to save Sasha so Sasha doesn't die. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen. One of the other things that happens is when they, I think Louise is one of the ones delivers the exploding chair to Premier Zachary. And I keep wanting to call him Commander, but no, it's Premier Zachary. She's one of the ones that delivers that chair. Then, of course, it explodes and kills him. Almost kills Mikasa and Eren. But I would say that Louise's devotion to the cause is more because of Mikasa. Not necessarily Eren, but more Mikasa, because at one point during the story, and they haven't gotten to this in the anime yet, but Mikasa takes off her scarf and she leaves it behind at one point when they're trying to do something, when they're trying to, there's a battle coming or something, and she takes off her scarf and leaves it behind. And Louise finds the scarf and she holds on to the scarf, she wears the scarf, and Louise ends up getting hit by some shrapnel from, I think, one of the thunder spears, and she's probably not going to survive. But Mikasa finds her again, and she, takes her scarf back, and that's when Mikasa keeps the scarf for the rest of the time and everything. For the rest of the story, she keeps the scarf, of course, as we see. But I think it's Louise dies, but I could be wrong on that. Some of the other members that they have are Wim. Don't think we know anything else about him. Holger, again, don't know really that much about him. Surma, who is one of the new recruits to the Cadet Corps. We see him when Flock shows up at the cadet training place where Commander Chavez, or where Key Chavez is. And he, Flock says, okay, if you want to prove your devotion to the cause of joining the Jeagerists, beat up Chavez. And that was unnecessary. That was entirely unnecessary to do that. He didn't have to have them do that to prove their loyalty. But, several of them do, and that is kind of hard to watch because, we like Commander Chavez. We learn a bit more about him throughout the course of the series. He's we find out that he's this, returning one at the beginning of the series that just returned from the scouting trip. He was one of the leaders there. He was, the one that was there training the kids when they were in the Cadet Corps. We learned that he was friends with Eren's dad and kind of the reason that Eren's mom and dad met. And that he's kind of been watching Eren grow his entire life. So we get a lot of his backstory in that time frame. A lot of it more at the end of the third season. We get a lot of that, or not the end of the third season, but the end of first half of season 3, I think. But we learn a lot about him, and unfortunately we do learn later on from reading the manga. Of course, I've read this. Unfortunately, he dies. Him. And spoilers if you didn't know that, you're watching these and you haven't actually finished the manga. Sorry. We know that Chavez unfortunately dies. Him and McGath, the Marley officer, they work together to try to blow up a ship to try to, make it harder for the Jeagerists to follow. What ends up happening is, of course, Flock and his group of the Jeagerists have, they end up, they help Eren escape, or they meet up with Eren, and then they take him to the restaurant where Hanji and Mikasa and Armin and where a bunch of their friends are, and where the Browse family happens to be at this point in time. They take them there. And Eren, this, Flock basically is like holding everyone at gunpoint, puts all of them down in the cell because he knows that Armin can't transform down in the cell without A, killing his friends, and then B, squashing himself. And also with the fact of how much force Armin creates when he transforms, that would be enough force to probably level a good portion of the city that they're in and kill a bunch of civilians. And Flock knows that Armin usually won't make that bet in this case. But of course, he does that. And, he locks them down in the cell along with like Connie and Jean are down there as well. And they lock the Browse family away. And then Eren goes and he has his conversation with Mikasa, Armin, and then Gabby's, of course, sitting over there watching this with like Eren sitting at the table with his hand bloody, like showing the fact that I can transform any second. See how this goes. Obviously, we've seen that Eren has gained quite a bit of control in whether or not he wishes to transform, because of course he walks around in Liberio in the internment zone at the hospital for quite a while with like a leg that's been cut off, and he, his own, and he hurt himself in those cases, so he could look like a soldier that just got injured and needs treatment. And yet he stays that way for a little while until the rest of the group show up and until it's time to pull off the plan. But of course, Flock is very devoted to Eren in this case, although at the end of season 3, we do have a moment where Flock confronts Eren and Mikasa and Armin about the fact that they kind of seem to force Levi into choosing Armin to become the one force Armin, or they seem to force Levi into making Armin the one that would get the Colossal Titan instead of Erwin. And Flock seemed to blame them quite a bit for that, but that seems to have changed a bit now, because now he basically puts it as all of our hopes rest on Eren. All of our hopes rest here. And Flock ends up, of course, he goes to try to find Zeke, so that way they can get Zeke back to Eren. And then during the time frame when, all the, after the Colossal Titans all wake up and they're all stomping out of, Paradise to go and then swim and then make their way to the other continents and, start causing a ton of, devastation there. Flock and his group are holding the, Asian clan, the Yamamoto's holding, them hostage, and are, threatening to kill them, and then they're going to destroy the flying boat, the plane that they developed. And this is, of course, when, Armin and Mikasa and the rest of the group show up, and, Flock chases them, and there's this huge battle that happens there. And of course, as I mentioned, this is when, this is during the time when the Marleyans have to work with the Eldians, with, Eren's friends, Magath and Reiner and the rest of them, the rest of the warriors that are there have to work with them. And they do. And they do manage to, all of them manage to get on one of the boats that has the flying boat, and they manage to escape. Except for Quixotes and Magath, who end up on one of the other ships, and they blow up the other ship in order to help protect, allow the others to have more time to escape, because now it makes it harder for the Jeagerist to follow them. We also get a moment from Magath where he does seem to regret everything that he's done to Gabby, to Falco, to Udo, to Zofia, to Zeke, to Reiner, to Bertolt, to Annie, to Falco, to Galliard, to all of them. What he's done to all of these children, that he's basically forced them into becoming nothing but killing machines, nothing but weapons. And I'll go over that a little bit more in the Marley Warrior video that I am going to talk about a little bit, how that kind of, how they use that to mess with people's heads. Also, throughout the course of the Jeagerist setup, where we learn about the Jeagerist, of course, we see a lot of other civilians that seem to support the Jeagerist. This is not a surprise. All over the world, there are different extremist groups. Even in our world, we know that there are a lot of extremist groups, and there are lots of civilians and, everyday people that do, to a degree, support what they're doing. The Eldians have been trapped on this island on Paradise for the past 100, 710, whatever years. And for a good amount of that time, they thought that they were the only people on the earth, only people left. And then they find out that, no, we're not the only ones left. No, there are other humans out there. They keep turning other Eldians like us into Titans and then leaving them on our island so they will kill and eat us. and they will come and attack us. And then they sent these warriors. You know, they sent the Colossal Titan, they sent the Armor Titan, they sent the Female Titan. They sent them here. They sent the Beast Titan that then came and turned more of us into, you know, Titans. And they sent them here, and they're coming here to attack us because they want to kill us. I don't know if they specifically know that it's because the Marleyans want the resources that are on the island. I don't 100% remember if that's the case or not. But I don't remember if they reveal that specifically or if the Eldians are quite aware of that. But they end up finding out about some more of that, of course. But we have that moment there where we have a lot of these civilians, of course, rallying around, you know, the front gates and everything, and they're there when they, you know, they see what happens when, you know, Premier Zachary's office blows up, because they're making so much, they're protesting so much about the fact that Eren's been, you know, Eren's locked up, Eren's been jailed and everything when they come back from Liberio, and so we have those moments there. But what ends up happening is, of course, I kind of jump around a little bit with these videos. I apologize. I do apologize. But what ends up happening, of course, is, you know, when the Marleyan warriors and the, you know, Eren's friends, when that group that are trying to stop the rumbling are escaping, and they get their way to the Azumabito's other base where they can get the flying boat ready for, you know, flying. Flock ended up having gotten onto the boat and like held onto the boat with his, you know, omnidirectional gear, and he ended up shooting holes in the fuel tank of the ship, so they have to then take even more time to patch them up, which, you know, means it's even, you know, they have less time until the Titans appear, and the, you know, the Colossal Titans have actually appeared already and are slowly working their way, you know, just like slowly spreading out in this radius all around and causing, you know, more and more damage. And, you know, we have it that, you know, Flock shoots that, and Flock does definitely get killed. I don't remember if he gets shot specifically by one of the other, by like Connie or John or something, but he does die either that way or he gets trampled by the Titans after, you know, the ones on the flying boat fly, and then the rest of them, you know, the Azumabitos and their, you know, their clan or their people that work for them get on the boat, along with Annie and Gabby and Falco are all on the boat too, the other ship, and it's, you know, sailing off as well, to try to stay ahead of the Titans so that way they don't get squashed. Hanji, of course, stays behind, and she tries to take out some of the Titans. Unfortunately, that is a slight bit of an empty gesture, but I see where she's coming from. You know, she's already lost so many of her friends, and she at least wants to give her other friends that are still around fighting chance. But what ends up happening is, you know, back on Paradise, we have it that so many of the people are kind of celebrating. And we see this in the manga, we'll see this in the anime. We have it that so many of the people are like celebrating that, oh, you know, the Marleyans are going to get driven out, the, you know, the rumbling's happening, Eren's going to, you know, have all of these Colossal Titans go out and trample everything, you know, the walls are gone, we're kind of free now, there's no other Titans on the island, you know, and they're celebrating, and they're having like this kind of festival type of a thing, even though there's, you know, when the walls fell and the Titans started, you know, moving, it crushed a lot of people's homes. It probably crushed a lot of, you know, homes and businesses and other things like that. And, you know, people definitely died and were injured in these cases where it just kind of falls apart. And it's just very, you know, it's that two-pronged system of, you know, this horrible thing is happening everywhere else in the world because now all these Titans are going to destroy everything. But then there's also this, you know, the people have had these walls around them for so long, and then in the past several years, they've learned that not only can Titans get inside the walls, Titans are actually other people like us, and that they're sent from this place called Marley, and that they just want to cause all this trouble and all this damage, and they want to kill us and everything. So there's that very dichotomous thing there. And we do see, of course, in the end, in the final chapter, we do see, and this is there even before they put in the extra pages, we learn that the Jeagerist faction has become much more of the military faction of Eldia. With the fact of the rest of the world, got Eren, wiped a ton of them out and got rid of a ton of their technology and everything and set them back quite a ways. We have the Eldians now able to start building up more of their own technology and advancing their own technology to get to the point where they can now compete with the rest of the world instead of just, huddling on their island and being terrified. And, they have the Jeagerist faction that develops there. And Historia seems to be in support of this, and the rest of the troops seem to rally support behind it. The civilians, to a degree, seem to rally support behind the Jeagerists to keep them, going. And they have, the if we fight, we live. If we lose, we die. They have that motto going. And, as we've seen in the extra pages, that doesn't seem to make much of a difference because, the Marleyans are eventually the Marleyans, or whatever other, group you want to go with, are eventually gonna come back. They're gonna want revenge for what happened, even if, they made certain agreements with the other Marleyan warriors or with the former warriors and the other fighters and everything from Paradise. They're gonna still want their revenge to a degree. And that's still a very hard thing to watch or read. And it'll be interesting to see if they show that, if they use the extra pages in the anime for the final bit, or it'll be interesting if maybe what they'll do is, well, I guess what they could do is do alternate versions of it where they do one that's just basically, the ending bit based specifically on the, the original final chapter, and then do additional one that's based on additional episode or two that's based specifically on with the all the extra pages added in. And so we'll see what happens with that. Yeah, the Jeagerists kind of survive, though. They don't really fall out. They become the military branch, much more of the military branch, as opposed to the, the wings of freedom. They're the Jeagerists. And I would not be surprised if, to a degree, Eren ended up getting worshipped like a god the same way that, Emir Fritz did. That wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. So that's what we got for this video about the Jeagerists. I thank you very much for watching. Oh, well, there was one other tiny bit that I forgot that's just more like a small trivia bit. One of the other members of the group is called Samuel Link. I think it's a Link Jackson. So it's a joke on Samuel L. Jackson. Nick Fury, and from Pulp Fiction, and from all this other stuff that he's been in, of course. Just anything. Samuel L. Jackson. Yes, him. Currently in credit card commercials. But, I'm more familiar with him as Nick Fury because I'm the Marvel nerd. But, we have a whole bunch of other stuff that goes there. But he's there. I don't think he's an extremely over-the-top member of the Jeagerists, but he's there. So, as I said, that's what I have for this video. So I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye. If Eren dies, Paradise will sink under a sea of blood. The entire world will take vengeance on us. Your parents, your siblings, your children, they'll all be slaughtered. Devote your hearts.